Are you going to Notting Hill Carnival this year, or are you into London's history? There's a lot I bet you don't know, and heaps I wish I'd known sooner. Welcome to Conversations in the Cloud. I'm Kirsty Malcolm, and this is the community-led interview series where we speak to inspiring Londoners about what the greatest city in the world and community means to them, all from the comfort of the IFS Cloud cable car, 90 metres above the Thames. Are you wondering how you can get involved in Notting Hill Carnival? Maybe be a performer, a volunteer? Well, we've got a guest coming up who can tell you just how to do that. We are really excited to be joined by the London School of Samba. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kayne and I'm the Rainha da Bateria, or the Queen of the Drums for the London School of Samba.
What is it you're wearing? This is incredible.
It's a little old bodysuit girl, just a little bodysuit, a little fringe, it's fine, I love it.
Fringe, the sequins, the diamantes. Now, just as we are pulling up into the sky on the IFS Cloud cable car, I have a little fact, which is that there have been over 200 proposals.
200.
200.
Okay.
What do you think of that? What do you think of the views?
The views are incredible, I'll give you that. The views are good.
Would you accept the proposal?
I would, and then you can do it again.
Watch out, you'd have to be a really big transport and cable car fan to propose on the cable car, so just watch out for that one. How long have you been with the London School of Samba, and tell us a bit about it?
So I've been with the London School of Samba for 9 years now. So the London School of Samba has been around since the 80s, and it is actually what I, lovingly like to term the grandmother of Samba in the UK. We're one of the first Samba schools in Europe to exist, and there's something really unique about carnival culture, whether that be Caribbean carnival culture or Brazilian carnival culture in London, because it really does reflect the diversity of London.
And the London School of Samba is celebrating a special anniversary this year. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the London School of Samba is 40 years old, which is amazing. And it's been an absolute honour to be the Queen during this year. As I said, we're one of the first Samba schools in London, one of the first Samba schools in Europe. So that's a lot of history to go through the 80s, the 90s and noughties, and then onwards, spreading Samba love, Samba community and the knowledge of Afro-Brazilian culture as well in London. It's an honour, and we take that responsibility seriously. From us, there have been other Samba schools in London who have been created, and we're so proud to be part of that legacy and just take what we were inspired by from Brazil and share it to the masses over here.
What does it mean to be the Queen? Like, what does that role entail? What do you have to do? And presumably you're a bit of a spokesperson for the school.
Yes. So I'm the Rainha da Bateria, which means Queen of the Drums. So that is a highlight position in the school. It's an elected role at the London School of Samba. So essentially there's a competition, and there's multiple rounds, and essentially the members of the school, our community, vote for their Queen.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. The role of the Queen is essentially to translate the music from the drummers, known as the bateria, Rainha da Bateria. And, it involves musicality, it involves technicality, but it involves grace and poise. You are a spokesperson for the school, and what I found really enjoyable this year is that the Brazilian community have really showered me with a lot of love, because I feel that they feel that I've represented their culture, which is an absolute honour.
We've talked about representation there. How important is it to show representation and to appreciate the diverse communities that make up London?
Oh, it's a non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned. The history of Samba, the history of Carnival London, it comes from people who have been oppressed. It comes from people who have not been able to share their voices, but have been able to take that pain and create the spectacle that we have today, and it's really enjoyable. It's for us, I like to use it as an education point as well. You see the feathers, you see the sequins, you see the happy faces, you see the smiles, but behind that, that's a lot of history. And I think it's our duty as members of the Carnival community, whether that's mass bands or Brazilian bands, to educate the wider population. It's so important.
And tell us a bit about who makes up the community of the London School of Samba. You must have a lot of nationalities, people from all over the world. How important is that, and what does it feel like to be part of such an awesome organisation?
Oh, so we are a huge melting pot. So like my background, my parents are Jamaican. We have people obviously from Brazil. I don't think it would be authentic if we didn't have Brazilians in the London School of Samba. We have people from Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Australia, Korea, literally everywhere. And I think that's what makes us so special, because when we train really hard, whether it's the drummers or the dancers, and then we put on a show. And Brazilians are like, wow, we didn't know that you weren't from Brazil. It's like, yeah, we've done a good job. We tried. But no, we take it seriously. We want to represent Brazilian culture, samba culture as best as we can. And everybody adds their own flavour, which is really nice. So it's not, a carbon copy. It's the London style. And we're really proud of that.
And what's the energy like on that carnival day when you guys are all there, ready, performing? What do you actually do on Notting Hill Carnival parade days?
So for me, it's almost spiritual. You're going out, the sound of the drummers is electric. You feel that in your body. It's more than just dancing to a beat. You really feel it and you're embodying what you're doing. So we have a song that we sing, and we sing it in Portuguese, but it makes it that much more special as well. And it's euphoric. There's no real words to describe it, and it's why we keep doing it again and again. It's why I've been there for 9 years. It's why the school's been around for 40 years. We love it.
Tell us about what people can expect this year at Carnival from your group.
So our theme this year is Back to the Roots, which is really important for us because, it's our 40th anniversary. We're taking it back to the beginning of the London School of Samba, but also the beginning of Samba. There are spaces in our sections if people want to parade from absolute beginners to people who are more advanced. You can volunteer, you can be a drummer. So if anybody wants to get involved with the London School of Samba for our 40th anniversary parade, please join us. Please let us know. That would be amazing. We are on all major sort of social media platforms, London School of Samba. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can find us on our website, and we're pretty responsive. There's a number of roles that you can, choose to do. You can perform if you want to dance. There's spaces in various sections from absolute beginners all the way to professional dancers. If you want to drum, there are spaces there. If you want to help with costumes, if you want to help with the flow, if you want to help giving us food and water on the parade, there are so many roles and responsibilities that make up Carnival. It's not just the performers that you see. It takes an entire community to put on this show every single year. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of blood, sweat and tears behind the scenes, but we'll do it over and over and over again.
And obviously TfL is a proud sponsor of the Notting Hill Carnival. How important do you think it is that brands and organisations get involved with communities like this in London? Obviously TfL has a huge diverse workforce, many of whom are from descendants from the Windrush generation.
Exactly.
How important is it to see companies like TfL and IFS supporting Carnival?
I think you touched on it perfectly right there. There's synergies between things like Notting Hill Carnival and TfL. As you just said, people from Windrush generation, people from the Caribbean community have also given their time and lives to TfL, and it's important. And also, just from a very basic point, it's the infrastructure getting in and out of TfL. We identify lots of parts of Carnival by the names of stations, right? So it's a no-brainer, and it's great to see TfL on board with things like this. It's great.
And you mentioned TfL stations there. Do you have any funny stories of going on TfL? Do you guys take pictures on the tube? Do you go to Carnival in your outfit on the tube or on any of the transport? How do you get there?
So usually we all, you'd get in with your normal wear, but by the end of the parade, sometimes there's a feather, there's glitter, we're trying to get home at that point. So, anything that we can do just to get home safely is great. And, we're always thankful for the staff at TfL who are able to, manage the crowds, get masqueraders back home safely. It's amazing.
And obviously, if you are going to Carnival and you spot the Queen of the London School of Samba, take a picture on TfL, come for a ride on the IFS Cloud cable car. What have you thought of the ride? What do you think of the views? Is it quite relaxing?
This is really relaxing. I've never been before. I've really enjoyed it, and maybe I can get proposed to as well. Who knows?
Is there a lucky person in the picture?
I won't say anything.
Maybe a carnival proposal. Oh my goodness.
Oh, don't me.
I love a carnival proposal. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
Conversations
you.
in the Cloud.
Thank you.
We also want to add that TfL is involved in Carnival and a proud sponsor because they really want to send a powerful message of diversity and unity. Obviously, they want to celebrate London's diverse culture, their diverse employees, and of course, to make sure that the network is safe and welcoming for all the passengers who travel both on TfL and the IFS Cloud Cable Car. I am very excited to be joined by a real history buff. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Kayne Kawasaki and I am the real history buff.
We are 90 metres above the Thames. First of all, I hope you're not scared of heights.
I'm not. I've actually done a solo skydive before, so I'm not afraid of heights.
What do you think of the views?
The view is fantastic.
History really is your area of expertise, and Black history especially. And we're celebrating Notting Hill Carnival because TfL is of course a sponsor and it's steeped in history. Tell us a little bit about your connection to London.
Yes, so my connection to London is I am born and bred in London, Peckham to be specific. Shout out anyone from Peckham. As well as that, my mum was born in Peckham and my grandparents came to Peckham from the Caribbean. Originally, they arrived in Rotherham and they moved to Peckham for a more racially tolerant area. So bearing in mind that this was in the 60s. So I say that to say I am, Peckham to the core.
And now, tell us a little bit about your story of getting into the history area, because I understand it used to be a teacher.
Yes.
But now you share Black history with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people online through your social media platforms. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up doing that.
Yeah, sure. So I started off as a teacher, got my PGC. Shout out to all of my teachers. We love you. And yes, I started out as a teacher, but initially I always wanted to be a history teacher. However, I was encouraged to be an English teacher because it's a core subject. While obviously that did benefit me career-wise while I was a teacher, I always had that innate passion for history. So when the time came about and the stars aligned, as they say, I started to teach about history online, specifically on TikTok.
What's going on, people? This is TikTok Unpacks Notting Hill Carnival. In this video, I'm going to be unpacking part of Notting Hill Carnival's origin story, namely Kelso Cochrane. Have you heard of that name before? If not, you're in the right place.
For me, TikTok was a place for Gen Z and TikTok dances and things of that nature. I didn't think that there would be an audience for history, and in particular UK Black history, but TikTok and the algorithm and the people that followed me proved me wrong, because however many years later, I'm sitting here with over 1 million likes on TikTok.
Wow. And you have also done consultation for the likes of English Heritage, TikTok, you've had a TEDx. At TfL, they're really digging into the history that has sometimes not been brought to light. How important is it for organisations to do that and to highlight and spotlight communities that are underrepresented?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and the reason why I would say it's important is as a teacher, and speaking from someone who has a teaching background, I feel as if in regards to history, some of us have been done a disservice in regards to being taught about history in schools. As a result, some of us are adults now, and we're working in institutions and we're not really familiar with our country, our city that we live in, the area that we live in. And as a result, I think it's really important for institutions and companies to be using times like this, August, Notting Hill Carnival, Black History Month, kind of staples in the calendar to really teach on, our lovely city and the impact that, the Commonwealth has made.
And tell us a little bit about the history of Carnival. Why is it so important to London's history and all of our British history?
Yes, sure. So Notting Hill Carnival to me is a staple in regards to race relations, and we talk about it now as a celebration, as a British celebration, as a Caribbean celebration. However, historically, it came off of the back of the Notting Hill race riots in 1958. And for me, Notting Hill Carnival is a place where present day you can go and you can see everyone of every culture, every colour, every creed coming together and just simply celebrating. So if you could imagine, it started off as a response to a race riot, and now fast forward to 2024, I feel like it's accomplished its mission, i.e. to bring everyone together and to celebrate our lovely city and country.
what led to the riots that kind of eventually led to what has now become a celebration in Carnival, and who tragically lost their life as well?
Yeah, sure. So a myriad of reasons led to the Notting Hill race riots. There's a gentleman that I've actually got on the top that I wore to Carnival 2022. I'm not sure if you can see him here. And his name is Kelso, and he is originally from Antigua. But when he came over to the UK to work, he was residing in the Notting Hill area. And unfortunately, his life was taken. No one was ever convicted for this crime. And as a result, this was largely touted as the first racialized murder within Britain, and I say first in air quotes, as in first documented or first well documented one. So it was a real tough time to be black in that area at the time.
And who were the people who had the idea of bringing Carnival to life, and what really do you think their vision was at the time?
Yeah, so I would say the pioneers, and there are many of them, and we could literally spend hours talking about the many different pioneers. I say that to say this book has many authors, but essentially there were a few key people. One of them is Claudia Jones, who was on the t-shirt that I just highlighted. She is the lady on the left, and what she did as a response to the Notting Hill race riots is a year later she held a Caribbean carnival in St Pancras Town Hall, and that was an indoor festival because at that time it was so cold that she held an indoor carnival in February, literally a year later, to bring all of the community together. And there's another lady as well called Ronnie, and she held a street festival a few years after the Notting Hill race riots. So a myriad of different people coming together to do different things to really pioneer the communities coming together. So I think it's really important that we are starting to highlight some of these key figures. And if you walk around Notting Hill Carnival around the route, you will see some of the blue plaques highlighting some of the individuals.
And we can't really talk about Carnival and Transport for London without also mentioning, of course, Windrush, and many TfL and Transport and IFS Cloud cable car fans might not be aware that after the Second World War, help really was needed to rebuild Britain, to run the transport network, and hundreds, and by 1970, 4,000 people were actually recruited, asked to come over to Britain to work for London Transport, which is what Transport for London used to be. And there was advertisements, recruitment drives all across the Caribbean, and especially in places like Barbados. And they were actually temporarily housed, sometimes in war bunkers, as part of the London Underground system. And actually now there are people who work for TfL who are not only children but also grandchildren of people who actually were working at that time. And actually some interesting facts that I've got is that in 1968, more than 9,000 black people were working for London Transport, and they were placed in a variety of roles like bus conductors, underground station staff, canteen assistants, building work. However, many had, for example, university degrees, and it's really now recognised that they were not offered the opportunities of their counterparts. And TfL has done a lot of work, and if you have a search of TfL Windrush, you can actually find a lot of the inspiring stories of people who were working on the transport system at the time, photographs, and there's even some poetry by people who are staff and who have worked in the transport system. So I really recommend that you go and have a look at that. But what do you think sharing Black history has meant to you personally?
Sharing Black history for me personally, I feel like it's a part of my purpose. And for me, one thing that you often hear is, it isn't just Black history, it's British history. And once again, I feel like the two are so intertwined that I like to say British history because it kind of speaks about the importance that everyone should be learning it, and not just people who are of African descent.
It's really important also to point out that the workforce of today's Transport for London, over 30% identify as being black or from an ethnic minority. And really the workforce does include generations of people who actually came from those original adverts that went out across the Caribbean asking people to come over and work here in Britain, and who have created this rich history that we have in London. And TfL is a proud sponsor of Notting Hill Carnival. Do you think it's important that organisations like this do support Carnival and really shine a light on history here in London?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we wouldn't be able to get to Notting Hill Carnival without the love from you guys. So it's extremely important, but equally the history is extremely important because, the history informs where we are at today. So I think it's extremely important.
So Kayne, what is some information about Carnival that people just might not know?
Yeah, so I would say a bit of information that people might not know, and the reason why they might not know is because this is hot off the press. So it was published recently by the Voice newspaper. That I'm not sure if you can see it there, but Notting Hill Carnival now generates just shy of 400 million for the London economy. So that's something that people may not know.
And that is so interesting because the latest figure that I saw that was kind of everywhere online was 100 million. So that must be incredibly out of date and it's just not really publicised.
Yeah, exactly. So that figure was correct, but it was correct over 20 years ago. So this new study that was commissioned by the Voice newspaper is so important because it shows, the current impact of Notting Hill Carnival.
And obviously, looking at Carnival, the celebration that it is today, what do you think it makes it so special? How do you get to Carnival? What is the atmosphere like? You are obviously a Carnival fan.
Yes. What makes it so special, I would say first and foremost the food, I would say the music, calypso, soca, reggae, I would say the meaning, I would say the message, I would say a number of things make it really special and iconic.
What is the atmosphere like on that bus on the way to Notting Hill Carnival?
On the bus, the atmosphere is always electric on the way to Notting Hill Carnival, and that's because you get to see what everybody's wearing. There's always a great atmosphere. People tend to have a little sing-song. It's always a vibe.
Is there any little fact that everybody should know about London's history that they might not?
Ooh, just in general, or does it have something the carnival relate? I would say look at Cleopatra's Needle. It's by the Embankment station, and the reason why I say that is because it's an obelisk. It's a structure, and often people go past it and they think that it's faux. They think that it's fake. They think that it's a replica of something that was in Egypt, but it's actually real, and it actually predates London as we know it. So technically, it's the oldest thing in London, but many people just drive past it thinking that it's fake. So it has so much history, so I would say definitely do a deep dive into that because it's so interesting.
I did not know that. And do you have a last hope for the future of British history?
Yes, my hope is that Black History Month would be compulsory teaching within secondary schools, and the reason why I say that is because it can be standardized. Then we can make sure that the education gap isn't widening and that everybody up and down the country is getting the same level of Black British education in this country. That is my hope and dream. It's currently happening in Wales, so I'm hoping that England and Scotland can catch up.
Kayne, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your knowledge with us. It's been a real privilege to chat to you today on Conversations in the Cloud.
Thank you for having me.
This year, TFL is partnering with the Windrush Generation Legacy Association and Massology to take part in Carnival, and there will be a massive double-decker go-ahead bus supporting the mass band, and that will have artwork all across the side of it, which will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the independence of Grenada. So look out for the TFL staff, take photos with them, say hello, and of course, the IFS Cloud cable car will be open all of Carnival weekend. So why not pop into the cable car, have a little ride on your way to Carnival? Did you know that a trip on public transport can be just the ticket for literary inspiration? Have you ever written or researched a novel while travelling on public transport? Maybe the Tube, maybe the Lizzie line? Our next guest is a brilliant author. Could you please introduce yourself?
So hello, my name is Claire Linney and I'm the author of a children's book called Time Tub Travellers and the Silk Thief.
First of all, what do you think of the views here, 90 metres above the Thames?
I mean, it's not the most beautiful day in London, but I can see Canary Wharf, which looks stunning and grey. So yeah, it's good. It's good.
You have a speciality in history. Can you spot any historical places from where we are? I can point some out as well.
I mean, the O2 is almost history now because we're talking like Millennium
Dome. It used to be called so.
Yeah.
The O2. That's just around the corner from here. There's also the Royal Docks, which is pretty historical.
Yeah.
And Cutty Sark just down the road as well. So there's a lot of historical stuff. But enough about that, more about you. Tell us about your book. We're really excited to hear about it.
So my book is called Time Tub Travellers, and I read a book called Black Tudors, The Untold History by Miranda Kaufman when I was on maternity leave, and it completely blew my mind because I really didn't know a lot about Black British history. I was never taught it at school. And the idea that black people were just part of the fabric of everyday life in Tudor times completely blew my mind. And then the idea for a book became a bit like an earworm, because I thought it would be great if children could start to discover stories like this, but in a fun fictional way. Because I hated history at school, I would never have read a history book, but I would have read a book about time travel. So that became the idea for my book, and then I ended up writing it.
This almost feels like it could be a time travel TARDIS. The time travel IFS cloud cable car TARDIS.
We just need a way of activating. I mean, the time travel machine in my book is based on my own Victorian bathtub. So basically anything could be a time travel device. You just never know.
So your book has time travel in it, it's history. For people who aren't aware of some of the black history of London, what actually was the black history of London during Tudor time?
So there are quite good records of about several hundred black people living in Tudor Britain at the time, and some of them would have come from Spain or Portugal. Reasonable Blackman, who is a silk weaver that I talk about in my book, actually came here from Holland. We think he learnt his silk weaving trade in Holland and then brought that expertise to London. Silk was very popular. Queen Elizabeth was a massive fan, so of course everybody had to have silk stockings, silk clothing, and that's probably how he built up his business in London.
Wow, and how did you research the book? I mean, were you in the archives in London? Where were you going?
So I am not a historian by any means. I got a lot of the information from books like Black Tudors by Miranda Kaufman. I also had to read a lot of books about what it was like to live in Tudor times. If my history teacher knew that I'd written a history book, he would be amazed. But even finding out things like how London smelt or how it sounded or what ships looked like in London, all those little details all went into the book.
It's now clear that many black stories have been left out of British history. How important is representation, really?
It's important because we don't have a full picture of the history of this country unless we know all of the history. It's kind of like piecing together a really big, complicated jigsaw puzzle. But also, if you think about how we think about black and brown people in the context of modern Britain, actually, it really changes our view when we know that they've been an important part of our history, of our society for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not just that narrative of enslavement and Windrush. It's much more complex and much more interesting than that.
And obviously TFL also has a rich and diverse history, and one of the things that they've been doing, especially with the anniversary of Windrush, is going back into the archives, talking to former staff, talking to people who worked, built and ran the network. How important is it for organisations like TFL to showcase communities, to spotlight different stories within our London community?
I think it's really important, and in terms of spotlighting and highlighting histories, I think that's how we really find connections with the past and with history. It's through individuals, it's through knowing their names, their faces, and just the intimate details about their life. I think that's when you really build a connection, and it just brings the history to life in a really fantastic way.
Heard it here first. And has London inspired you? I understand maybe you did a little bit of research on the TFL network.
Well, I spend a lot of time reading on the tube, so much so that I actually sometimes take slightly longer tube journeys just so that I can spend more time reading. So a lot of the research was done when I was commuting to and from work, and I always have my phone and my notes open because quite often if I'm just standing under someone's armpit on the central line, I might suddenly get an idea of how to solve a plot point, and then I will jot it down on my phone and then I've got it for later.
Do other passengers inspire you, or any of your characters in your book inspired by people that you might have seen while sitting on the network?
I've sometimes been inspired by people. Usually if someone has a really interesting way of walking, or they've got an interesting facial expression, especially one of disgust or horror, then that can sometimes inspire a description. But I try not to base it too much on anyone in case they ever discover that they've secretly found their way into my book.
You'll have to read the book to find out,
Yeah.
of course. We're celebrating Notting Hill Carnival. Is there any chance there might be a Notting Hill Carnival themed book in the works? But what is your second book about?
So I definitely have 2 more books that I'm planning. Beyond that, I need a little bit more time to think, but the second one is going to be about one of my favourite black historical figures, which is Pablo Fankay. He was born in Norwich, he was a black Victorian circus owner and one of the most successful ones of his age. He was an amazing equestrian and an absolute legend of the circus world.
Interesting, Claire, that you should mention the circus, because the IFS Cloud Cable Car will have a circus theme and performance here all throughout the summer for children on Mondays, Thursdays and Saturdays in the afternoon. So if that's your thing and you want to have a little dance, meet some circus performers, come along to the IFS Cloud Cable Car. What do you think needs to happen to change representation for the future?
I also think we could tell more black and brown historical stories in culture. So Pablo Fanke needs to get the Greatest Showman treatment. I think there could be more plays, there could be more Netflix series, because I think when you see those stories and those figures brought to life on the big screen, in books, it really cements them into our culture and our understanding. And I think that would be a brilliant thing to change.
You actually went viral for something recently. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because it is very important.
Can we talk about why the British Museum is hiding its kids' books on Black British history? I'm not joking. So I went to the British Museum this morning and spent a lovely hour looking around their exhibition of life. And I was starting to think there's something missing, something I'm expecting to see here in the British Museum that I'm not finding. And that was any books on Black British history. I couldn't find any books on Black British history. There was one adult book and no children's books on display. And I think in context, they had a whole table of books on cats in history. And I got home and did a bit of cats. So it turns out that cats apparently, and their historical role is important enough to warrant an entire table in the gift shop in the British Museum. And this kind of pushed a couple of buttons for me, and I have a platform, so I got home and did a bit of a rant about it, which went quite viral. Having said that, a lot of actually really positive things did come out of this. So I did write a strongly worded email to the British Museum, who acknowledged that they could do a lot better, so I will be coming in to check up on them soon. And I also got a few people who work in other historical museums around the country get in touch and say, actually, I'm going to go and have a look at our gift shop tomorrow and see what our selection of books on Black British history is like. So yes, it was a rant, but it's been really nice that I think some positive things have come out of it.
That's brilliant, and hopefully that means that they will add some more authors in there to represent the diversity of Britain as well.
I sent them a very long list. So
amazing.
They should do.
I look forward to going to the gift shop to find some of those. That's absolutely amazing, and we would love to hear a little bit of your novel. Would you read us some?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So I like to describe my book as the literary equivalent of sneaking vegetables into your children's tomato pasta sauce. The reason being is there is a giant snake in here, there is a kidnapping, there are child catchers, so kids really love the fast-paced adventure of the story, but there's also a lot of facts about Tudor history, about Black British history, so they'll get that educational goodness snuck in on the side as well. So at this point in the book, Zula and Milo, my two main characters, have come across a strange and very beautiful antique bathtub in Zula's aunt's shop, but the bathtub is going to do something quite unexpected. "Are you okay?" Milo asked, concerned. "I think so." Zula broke off suddenly. "Can you hear that?" she said sharply. A low hum was rising from somewhere around them, and the bathtub started vibrating beneath their feet. "Yeah, what is it?" exclaimed Milo. The vibrations below them were getting stronger, and the hum was growing more and more intense. "Maybe we should get out of the bath," suggested Zula. As she lifted her leg over the side, the bathtub shook violently, throwing her back inside. At the same time, Milo lost his balance too, crashing into Zula in the middle of the tub. "Zula, I don't like this," said Milo. "Me neither," she replied, wide-eyed. The shaking intensified, pinning them to the floor of the tub. The golden sides seemed to split into a myriad of bright flashing colours that swirled hypnotically around them. The strange symbol beneath the taps glared brighter and brighter, shining a beam of light across the room. Zula clutched Milo. She could feel her heart starting to race. She opened her mouth, but a combination of the vibrations and fear were making her teeth chatter so hard that she couldn't speak. Instead, she squeezed Milo's hand. He squeezed back hard, his eyes firmly closed. Zula felt sure the noise would bring her aunt and dad upstairs, and they would be in so much trouble. Instead, the room around them exploded into a kaleidoscope of colours, and she let out an uncharacteristic scream. There was a deafening whoosh of air and a dazzling white light, followed by a strange sucking noise like something large disappearing into a huge pond of mud. Then with a loud pop, the storeroom disappeared.
Claire, that was incredible reading.
Obviously,
we are right next to City Airport, and it felt like the plane was crescendoing as your story was. It was absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for joining us on Conversations in the Cloud.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Transport for London and IFS are really proud of their rich and diverse history, and of course of all of their amazing employees. And if you didn't know it, there's actually a Black History tube map which celebrates iconic figures from throughout history. So if you're a history buff, I really recommend Googling that and checking it out. So you can look out for all the amazing TfL staff and that bus at the Carnival Parade, say hello, take a photo, and of course, TfL and the IFS Cloud cable car love to get your photos when you're traveling on the network, the tube, the bus, at the parade with their staff, or if you're taking a trip on the IFS Cloud cable car. And you can send those photos and videos to their social accounts. You can tag at TfL on Twitter and TikTok, at Transport for London on Instagram, as well as at IFS London Cable Car on Instagram and TikTok. If there is something you would like to hear about, let us know in the comments and we can cover that in a future episode. And in the meantime, if you are headed to the Notting Hill Carnival, it is super popular, it is amazing, but it will be busy, so do look at the TfL website and plan your journey. I'm Kirsty Malcolm, thanks for joining us.